Hello, my name is Lewis and welcome to Gathering the Magic. Today we're looking at a $90 budget Miirym Sentinel Wyrm deck tech. From the upcoming Commander Legends set, this Dragon Spirit with Flying and Ward 2 says whenever another non-token dragon ETBs under your control, create a token that's a copy of it, except the token isn't legendary if that dragon is legendary. This deck is about ramping to the absolute max, getting all that mana so we can play some big, nasty dragons and power over our opponents for the win. Now, let's get straight into the budget brew, as we don't want this video to drag on.
I will smack your face off of your face!
As always, we're starting off this deck tech hot with all of that ramp. First on up, we have Human Shaman Draconic Disciple to tap to add 1 mana of any colour. We can also pay a massive 7 and tap, sacrificing it to create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. And Rattleclaw Mystic that we can tap for any of those teamer colours, or morph if we wanted to. There's Somberwald Sage to tap to add 3 mana of any one colour, spending that mana to only cast creature spells, and Whisperer of the Wild that we can tap to add a forest, or thanks to that ferocious mechanic we can tap to add 2 if we control a creature with power 4 or greater. There are Commander Classics in Cultivate and Kadama's Reach to both search your library for up to 2 basic lands, putting 1 into your hand and 1 onto the field tapped. There's Farseek to search your library for an island or mountain, putting it onto the field tapped, and Rampant Growth to search your library for a basic land, putting that card onto the field tapped. Onto Mana Rocks, we have Classics first in Commander Sphere to add 1 mana of any colour in your commander's colour identity, and Mind Stone to add colourless, both with them having secondary sacrifice options to draw a card. Moving on to the Talismans, first with Creativity that we can add for colourless or add for an island or mountain with it dealing 1 damage to you. And Curiosity to do exactly the same but with that forest or island. For the final talisman, we have Talisman of Impulse to again do the same but for those Gruul options. And speaking of, we have Gruul Signet to pay 1 tap and add Gruul to your mana pool. Continuing the trip to Signet City, we have Izzet Signet and Simic Signet to again do exactly the same to get those Izzet and Simic colours. We do need more ramp options in this deck than a normal one, as the cost of dragons tend to be quite high, so the more mana, the easier it will be to cast those dragons. For the last in our Signet party, there is Arcane to add 1 mana of any colour in your commander's colour identity. And finally, we have Sol Ring, because Sol Ring. Before we start looking at all of those dragons, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for all things MTG. Subscribing is completely free to do, and it helps our channel grow and grow. You can also help support us by becoming a prickly pal and joining our brand new channel membership today. As we just mentioned, now we're looking at all of those big bad dragons. First up, we have Ataka World Render, the flying trample dragon that says whenever a dragon you control attacks, it gains double strike till end of turn. And Thrakus the Butcher, a trample dragon peasant that says whenever it attacks, double the power of each dragon you control until end of turn. We've got Dragonborn Champion with Trample that says whenever a source you control deals 5 or more damage to a player, draw a card. And Imrith Desert Doom, the flying dragon that has Ward 4 as long as it's untapped, and when it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Then if you have fewer than 3 cards in your hand, draw cards equal to the difference. We have another new card in Renari, Merchant of Marvels, that says you may cast dragon spells and artifact spells as though they had flash, also with that background option. And big budget breaker Udvara Hellkite, another flying dragon that says whenever a dragon you control attacks, put a 6/6 red dragon creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Remember, with Miirym, whenever another non-token dragon ETBs under your control, you are creating another copy of it. And the big bonus here is it doesn't matter if these dragons are legendary, we get another copy and they both stay on the field. There is Cloth Unrivaled Ancient that says when it attacks, add X mana in any combination of colours where X is the total power of attacking creatures, spending this mana only to cast spells. And until end of turn you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. And Savage Ventmaw, the flying dragon that when it attacks, you add 3 mountain and 3 forest to your mana pool. Until the end of turn, this also doesn't empty from your mana pool as steps and phases end. From Modern Horizons 2, there is Obsidian Charmor that costs 1 less to cast for each land your opponents control that could produce colourless. And when it ETBs, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. And Scourge of Valkus that says whenever it or another dragon ETBs under your control, it deals X damage to target creature or player, where X is the number of dragons you control. And you can pump it up for 1 mountain too. We've got Drakuseth, Maw of Flames. This is whenever it attacks, it deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each of up to 2 other targets. And Ryusi, the Falling Star. This is when it is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, it deals 5 damage to each creature without flying. The value that Miirym holds in a deck like this is so key. If you're having all these cards with these triggers when they die, ETB or anything, thanks to Miirym there's going to be a second copy of that creature, so it's double the damage and double the destruction. On to the final 3, there's Jugan, the Rising Star. This says when it dies, you may distribute 5 +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures. And Kaiga, the Tide Star, that when dies, gain control of target creature. And lastly, we have Lathlis, Dragon Queen. This says whenever another non-token dragon ETBs into your control, create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. And again, with that lovely option to pump up those dragons. Now we've looked at all those dragons, let's look at those dragon-loving cards. First on up is Dragonlord's Servant. This is dragon spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And Dragon Speaker Shaman, this is dragon spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. We've added in Sarkhan's Triumph. This is search your library for a dragon creature card, revealing it and putting it into your hand. And Magda Brazen Outlaw, they can create you treasures, and if you sacrifice 5, you can search your library for an artifact or dragon card, putting that onto the field. Dragon Tutors, you love to see it. We've got another deadly instant in Dragon's Fire that says an additional caster cost a spell, you may reveal a dragon card from your hand, or choose a dragon you control. Dragon's Fire deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If you revealed a dragon card or chose a dragon as you cast a spell, Dragon's Fire deals damage equal to the power of that card or creature instead. And Spitflame that deals 4 damage to target creature. And whenever a dragon ETBs under your control, you may pay a mountain. If you do, return Spitflame from your graveyard to your hand. Now that is some really good damage recursion. Next on up is Silumgar's Scorn that again has that additional casting cost option to reveal a dragon card from your hand. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. If you revealed a dragon card or controlled a dragon as you cast it, counter that spell instead. And Dragon's Horde, this is whenever a dragon ETBs under your control, put a gold counter on it. You can remove a gold counter to draw a card, and you can use Dragon's Horde to add 1 mana of any colour. We have Delightful Enchantment Crucible of Fire that gives dragon creatures you control +3/+3. And Dragon Tempest, this is whenever a creature with flying ETBs under your control, it gains haste until end of turn. And whenever a dragon ETBs under your control, it deals X damage to target creature or player, where X is the number of dragons you control. And finally, we have Frontier Sage, the enchantment with that Khans or dragons option. If you choose dragons, whenever a creature with flying ETBs under your control, you may have it fight target creature you don't control. As always, before we finish up with those lands, we're looking at the best of the rest in this budget brew. First on up is Genesis Ultimatum that says look at the top 5 cards of your library, put any number of permanent cards from among them onto the field and the rest into your hand, and see the Unwritten to reveal the top 8 cards of your library, putting a creature card from among the revealed cards onto the battlefield. It has that ferocious option that says if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you may put 2 creature cards onto the field instead of 1. For this high mana deck we have Quicksilver Amulet that you can pay 4 and tap to put a creature card from your hand onto the field. And classic counterspell, Counterspell. For even more counterspells we have Negate to counter target non-creature spell, and one of my favourites in Rewind to counter target spell, untapping up to 4 lands. For some hasty enablers we have Fires of Yavimaya to give creatures you control haste. You can also sack it to give target creature +2/+2 until end of turn. And Rhythm of the Wild, this says creature spells you control can't be countered, and non-token creatures you control have Riot, so yes, they can also enter with haste. For one final hasty enabler we have Temur Ascendancy that also says whenever a creature with power 4 or greater ETBs, you may draw a card. And speaking of card draw we have Elemental Bond that says whenever a creature with power 3 or greater ETBs under your control, draw a card. There is classic green staple Garruk's Uprising that says when it ETBs, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. This card gives creatures you control trample, and whenever a creature with power 4 or greater ETBs under your control, draw a card. There is Return of the Wild Speaker that says you draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control. And Reflections of Litjara for ETBs and you choose dragons. Whenever you cast a dragon spell, you get to copy that spell. And we have that flashy human warrior Suruk Dragonclaw that cannot be countered, and creature spells you control can't be countered. And other creatures you control have trample. What a card. Onto the removal we have Beast Within to destroy target permanent with its controller, creating a 3/3 beast creature token. And Claw's Swill that says choose one, but if you control a commander when you cast a spell you can choose both. The first option deals X damage to each creature without flying, with the second destroying up to X target artifacts and or enchantments. For the final three we have Crowsang Grip to destroy target artifact or enchantment with that beautiful split second mechanic. And perfect for a flying deck there is Magma Quake that deals X damage to each creature without flying and each planeswalker. Finally we have one last enchantment, Embower Passage, that says creatures with flying can't block creatures you control. Now as we round off this deck we are looking at all of those lands. As always we're starting off with those basics, of which in this deck we have 8 island, 12 forest and 12 mountain, as this deck does run very even on those forest and mountain and slightly a little less on those island. And then to stick within that $90 budget we've put in those 4 classics, with Command Tower to add 1 mana of any colour in your commander's colour identity, Exotic Orchard to add 1 mana of any colour a land an opponent controls could produce, and of course Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse that can both be sacked to search your library for a basic land card, putting it onto the field tapped. With the new Commander Legends nearly out and seeing all of the spoilers, I do think Miirym Sentinel Wyrm is one of the best released new Commander options and one that I think will become a very, very popular one to pilot. There we have it, that is the Miirym Sentinel Wyrm $90 budget deck tech. Thanks for watching and don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for all things MTG. Check out our link tree in the description below for all of our social media and affiliate links. For now though, I'm all tapped out, so I'll see you in the next video.